Welcome to Dr. Jester Rants, and I'm gonna rant about this. From Breitbart, DOJ lists New York City, Portland, and Seattle jurisdictions permitting anarchy, violence, and destructions of American cities. Whoopsie-daisy! Ooh! This is interesting, but quite Oh, okay, fine. Let's go. The Department of Justice has announced a list of cities or jurisdictions in response to a presidential memorandum to review federal funding for cities where ongoing violent protests and riots have destroyed property and even resulted in deaths. In regards to that, as you all know, the BLM antics have been costing lives throughout America since Fentanyl Floyd died in May. For instance, just yesterday, somebody died, well, in that case, a bit indirectly, because they took everything from the guy. He killed a rioter, someone trying to steal a shop in self-defense, but they took everything from him. They couldn't get his GoFundMe page. They attacked him. He got vilified. They now charge him for manslaughter and other things that had nothing to do with what he did. He defended himself. He fired a couple of warning shots. The rioters trying to make them flee so he wouldn't attack him, and then he killed himself in this yesterday or the day before, something like that. So 37, maybe more people killed by the BLM, and well, it's gonna keep getting worse until they reel in and control these people. But on that note, and quite funnily, it reminds me of those post-apocalyptic movies in which if the city or the person who doesn't accept to control the local population or the criminality, they kind of get. Anyway, let's keep on going. The DOJ said on Monday that Seattle, Portland, and New York City are on the list for review after President Donald Trump said cities that are permitting anarchy, violence, and destruction of American cities should not receive federal funding. Another thing that Tim Pool actually said, and I once again agree. I've been watching a lot of his content, and he's the type of person that I like. It's level-headed, it's not biased, he tries to shed light on both issues, on both sides. He criticizes both sides, even though lately he has been criticizing a lot on the left, because the left has been pretty much going rampant in craziness. I mean, you take someone with ADHD, it's a demented psychopath, shove up a little bit of meth, makes him drink a gallon of coffee, a very strong coffee, and set it loose. That's basically what the leftist currently is. So I kind of understand why he would do that. Criticize the left even more so than the right. And he said it that if you are making an investment, if you are, for instance, you invest on somebody and that somebody is not giving you the return back in regard to your money, you definitely have the right to pull it. For instance, if you pay a bitch to suck your cock and she refuses to suck your cock, what would you do? You want your money back. And that's pretty much it. What is happening here in Seattle, Portland, and New York? Trump, or in this case the federal government, it's paying them the money, and they refuse to suck America's cock. So what does it do? What do they do? Well, no money for you, unless you suck my cock. That's exactly what is happening. Let's keep going. The memorandum said in part, it is policy and purpose of the United States government to protect the lives and property of people in the United States from unlawful acts of violence and destruction. Without law and order, democracy cannot function. Americans cannot exercise their rights, including the rights to peaceful expression, assembly, and protest. Property is destroyed, and innocent citizens and injured are killed. Unfortunately, anarchy has recently beset some of our states and cities. For the past few months, several state and local governments have contributed to the violence and destruction their jurisdiction by failing to enforce law, disempowering and significantly defunding their police departments, and refusing to accept offers from federal law enforcement assistance. As a result of these state and local government policies, persistent and outrageous acts of violence and destruction have continued unabated in many American cities, such as Portland, Seattle, and New York. Well, if you're against what the federal government is actually doing, just think that it's not exactly a defunding of the states. Think of it as a reallocation of funding to a more needed areas and areas that could potentially help the situation, kind of like what the mayors and governors of those places and cities kind of alluding in doing with the police, right? I mean, it's not defunding, it's just reallocation of funding to the more needed areas. That's exactly what it is. It's just a reallocation of funding. You can't complain it. You used that logic before. You gotta known unless you're a hypocrite. But then again, this is if you're not going to offer the services what you're getting paid for, then I'm gonna yank the funding out of it. And one thing is true, that because, for instance, New York has actually used city fundings and they went overboard and did not even include the whole judge circle thingy. I don't know, the whole rules or the whole steps that you actually had to do to make the bid for a protest. And other things. That's what they did when they painted Black Lives Matter in front of Trump's tower. They used public funding. They went overhead, as in they didn't respect the laws and regulations to do it. And then they used the local police officers to stop vandalism of our people, trying in this case to erase the graffiti, the vandalism of what they did, city-sanctioned vandalism. And then we have DiAngelo with over 14 people serving his goddamn fucking wife. Because, well, apparently she needs it. And he pays a lot. Some of them receive over $100,000 per year to do what? Just babysit his wife? I could do that with $40,000. I know, New York is... it's a very expensive city, but... give me the chance to live in America from a city like that, even though it's falling apart due to a few years of democratic rule, I'll still do it for 40. And then, well, we have the DiAngelo threatening to fire over 22,000 city employees because he can't pay them. But all in all, he has the money to actually use it and paint Black Lives Matter in front of Trump Towers. It's the logic, as V says, the left is the one in power, so you gotta suck to the powers. To the aristocrats, you gotta suck it up to them because they're stronger. Who can argue with that logic, right? Let's get back to the article. Well, Attorney Barr said in an announcement, when the state and local leaders impede their own law enforcement officers and agencies from doing their jobs, it endangers innocent citizens who deserve to be protected, including those who are trying to peacefully assemble and protest. We cannot allow federal tax dollars to be wasted when the safety of the citizenry hangs in the balance. It is my hope that the cities identified by the Department of Justice today will reverse course and become serious about performing the basic functions of government and start protecting their own citizens. That is absolutely true. For instance, a lot of the police officers have jailed or caught a few Antifa or protesters, BLM protesters, in, for instance, Seattle and Portland. And what did the district attorney do? And that's including Chicago too. They set them loose or they dropped the charges. That's exactly what you shouldn't do, and Barr is completely right. They are impeding the law enforcement from doing their own jobs because they want to weaponize retardedness. That's one way of putting it, what the Democrats want to do. They want to weaponize the retardedness of the Antifa and the BLM rioters and thugs. They think that using them will net them another year be on their chairs or on the office or something like that. Let me drink some coffee. And another thing is that they are not... and they are not protecting the citizens either. And not disregard, let's put the releasing of those Antifa and the people aside for a little. What happens when BLM, Antifa, etc. burns the property of somebody? Well, he could use the insurance, assuming the person has an insurance, so let's assume they do. The insurance won't cover it for 100%. What the insurance will cover, for instance, is just enough. Well, not even enough, as we saw in Minneapolis and other cities. They'll probably cover 1/3 or 1/4 of the expenses you have for demolishing the place and taking out the garbage. They will not cover for you to rebuild. They will not cover the other 2/3 or 3/4 of the price of what the business is going to cost in cleaning up. They're not going to cover the merchandise stolen, the merchandise burnt and destroyed, They are not going to cover any of this. This is going to come out of the pocket of the store owner, of the business owner. And that's definitely going to cost. It's going to affect the employment of the people in that area. The people are going to go under. There is going to be suicides, like what happened here with Gardner. It's going to be bad. And these people are so fucking retarded, they actually think they're stealing from the system and that the insurance will cover everything. That's complete bullshit. And even if it covers everything, for some miracle it does, the premiums will increase. And what's going to happen? You're going to start seeing the premiums on the price of your product. Because now you're going to have to pay for that premium. The store owner, the business owner, it's not going to take a hit. He's going to pass on that price on the products. So what costed $5 before the rioting, it's now going to cost $6, $7. Are you happy about it? Of course you're not going to be, because you're a goddamn fucking retard, isn't it, Antifa? Let's see, anything else? Let's see. And the jurisdiction. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Whether jurisdiction forbids the police from intervening to restore. Whether jurisdiction empowers the funded police departments. Whether jurisdiction refuses to accept. Oh, okay. So this one is definitely important. Let me read this. The DOJ announcement includes the criteria for jurisdictions to be on the list. Whether jurisdiction forbids the police force from intervening to restore order amid widespread or sustained violence or destructions, has happened in Seattle. Whether jurisdiction has withdrawn law enforcement's protection from a geographical area structure that law enforcement officers are lawfully entitled to access, but have been officially prevented from accessing or permitted to access only in exceptional circumstances, except when the law enforcement officers are briefly withheld as tactical decisions intended to resolve safely or expeditiously a specific and ongoing unlawful incident posing an imminent threat to safety of individuals or law enforcement officers. Holy shit! You need a bit of commas in there. That was a mouthful. But Seattle and Portland again. Whether jurisdictions empowers or defunds police departments, Seattle, Portland, and New York. Whether jurisdiction unreasonably refused to accept offers of law enforcement assistance from federal government. Seattle, Portland, and New York again. Any other related factors that Attorney General deems appropriate. Okay, that's opening a bit open-ended, but still kind of interesting. Let's see. Shootings in New York have been rise. Yes, that's what happens when you defund the police. While the city faces increased unrest, gun violence, the budget resulting in cancellation of new police recruiting. Meanwhile, the Manhattan and Brooklyn districts have declined to prosecute charges of disorderly conduct. Forcefully rejected federal law enforcement. Okay, let's go Portland. Yeah, over 100 consecutive nights of riots. You should, Breitbart, you don't answer to MSNBC, CNN or anything. You should definitely label them exactly what it is. Not protests, but riots. Those bent on violence regularly started fires through projectile shooting increased by more than 104% in June. In the midst of violence, Portland City Council cuts $15 million from the police bureau. eliminating 84 positions, crucially gun violence. And Portland, they also, or was it Seattle? They lost a chief officer on this because the person decided to resign. In August, Portland Mayor Willis sent a letter expressly rejecting officer law enforcement. Yes, this one was also quite rude. That's basically it. They're explaining why they see his feet on that description. So it's actually kind of funny, really. Oh, I can't wait to see what they are going to say about this. This is definitely proving to be a very interesting season in the series TV show called Shitty Life. Well, anyway, I've been dragging on and on and on about this, so thank you for watching. See you on my next video. Good night.